Okay, we're going to move on to the state Senate races. I think I may have misspoken earlier and said we're doing the House first. We're going to do the Senate first. We'll start with Senate District 2, Dee Brown.
All right.
Thanks for inviting me. I waited for you at the Hilton and you never showed up. Forgive me for being a bit late, but most of you know me. I'm Dee Brown. I serve Senate District 2, which used to be the Whitefish Columbia Falls Canyon area. And they redistricted me because they knew I could win whitefish. So now I'm down into the Lake Blaine and East Evergreen area. And that's my great-grandparents' old stomping ground. So I'm happy to run in that area. I have served 4 terms in the House and the last 2 sessions as the senator in Senate District 2. I chair the interim State Administration Veterans Affairs Committee, and I also serve under Chairman Brodell on audit. So we always stay busy, even in the interim. People get a hold of me, and the neat thing about today's society, there's a downside to having everything electronic, but you can listen and be bored stiff to every session of the legislature and every interim committee if you're so hooked. But if you have questions of me later, I'd be happy to answer them. Other than that, give them hell, Republicans.
Again, for the uncontested races, each candidate will have an opportunity to pluck from our lucky grab bag of surprise questions. And so Dee is the first victim.
Actually, rather than talk about me, it's easier for me to answer questions, but so I'll see what I can do. You know, I'm pretty comfortable down in the legislature because I am a retired school teacher and I taught 1st and 2nd grade for 8 years, and it really prepared me well. My question is, would you support legislation to eliminate funding for Common Core standards? Yes, yes, and yes.
All right, thank you, Dee. We're going to move on to Senate District 3, one of our contested races. So Don Kay and Keith Regier, if you'd come on up.
As you know, I'm running for Senate District 3. It's an open seat in Whitefish, Kalispell. It's a good time for me to get involved. It's time for me to step up, as I promised I would do after my mentor, Bob DePrado, passed on. Why is because the Flathead Valley has been very, very good to me and my family. My wife is here tonight with me, and our family has been very blessed to be in this area. My background is I grew up in Kalispell, in the Helena Flats Evergreen area. I grew up in a middle-class, blue-collar family. I worked in the woods with my dad, and I've got the chainsaw scar across my left knee to prove it. I also worked on ranches and farms as a kid, so I came up the hard way. I served my country in the United States Marine Corps, and I am a conservative Republican. I have never voted for a Democrat in my entire life. My first vote was when I was 18 years old. The election was already over, and I voted for Gerald Ford, and I'm very proud of that vote. I've been speaking to people in my district. In fact, I was out knocking doors today, and this is what I'm hearing. They're not happy about what happened in our last legislative session. They're not happy about the jobs bill not getting passed. They're not happy about the compact, and that it was with the off-reservation water rights that we have to live with now in Flathead County. That is not fair to our county. And they're not happy about the Medicare expansion and the biggest growth of government in the state of Montana's history. The definition of insanity that I was taught is doing the same thing expecting different results. It's time for people to step up into leadership positions. It's time to come together. It's time to quit fighting as a party, and where statesmanship and leadership is the harbingers of our party. And I'll leave you with that because my time is up. Thank you.
am Keith Regier, and I'd like to thank Republican Women for hosting this tonight. Very generous of them. I was raised on a farm. I'm a retired teacher, spent 28 years teaching at Evergreen, have 3 children, grown adults, and they live in the Flathead Valley, blessed that way. And I've lived in Senate District 3 for 28 years. It's a great place to raise a family. Love the Flathead. And that's my motivation for wanting to be in the legislature. I've had 4 terms in the Montana House. Due to Montana term laws, I am termed out in the House. That's why I'm running for the Senate. If my opponent wins, the voice of the people in Senate District 3 will be greatly diminished. I've been a majority whip. I've chaired committees. I'm presently the House Majority Leader. I've gotten bills through the legislature, and some of them have become law with a Democrat governor. I have rapport with the Republicans, and I have respect from the Democrats. And I did all that without compromising conservative Republican values. It's an evening for questions, and I guess I have a question for you. What does it mean to be a Republican? On that respect, what does it mean to be a Democrat? Just showing up at Republican functions that make you a Republican, or contributing to a Republican candidate? I would say no. I will submit that it is a like-mindedness around a core principles, core ideals. Those ideals are put into what we call the platform. Do we agree on everything in that platform? No. But on most of the issues and the major issues, I would say yes. That's what makes us a Republican. My opponent talked about, I have 2 minutes later, I'll tell you what he talked
All right, our first question, and Don, this first one will be for you for 1 minute. Okay. Would you support legislation to allow legislators to carry a concealed weapon or to open carry while in state buildings?
That's a tough one for me. I am completely pro-gun. I thought you were going to ask me about in the cities or towns without a concealed carry permit. I have a concealed carry permit. As far as in state buildings, I would have to look at that issue. I'm not ready to say that I would support that at this time or not. I'd have to look at it and really think about it. I do believe in having protection there for those, but I'd have to really think about that whole situation. But I can tell you that I'm Second Amendment 110%. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA, and I will not let gun owners down when elected to the state senate.
1 minute response.
Short answer is yes.
Yes.
They would need to have a concealed carry permit. It bothers me going into the state capitol and there's not supposed to be any weapons there. Gun-free is safety-free zones. We see school shootings, military bases, those are all gun-free zones. That's where the shootings takes place. If there's somebody that's going to come into the legislature, into your Capitol building and start shooting up the place, I would like to see legislators taking them out before they do much damage at all.
Amen.
No, I can appreciate that. And again, I'm not saying I disagree with my opponent. I just need to look at it a little closer. I'm a very thoughtful person, you'll find. I don't just come off the cuff with things like that. That is a very, very important decision. I know most of you probably in the room agree with it, and I understand that. But that's a very, very important decision that needs careful, careful thought.
All right, our second question, Keith, this will be for you initially. Would you support legislation in which citizens had already voted against a ballot initiative?
Short answer, no. It would be up to the citizens then to rescind that ballot initiative. We had a situation with medical marijuana, and citizens are the ones, you guys voted on that, it passed. There weren't any sideboards on it. It was really broad, wide open, and we saw a lot of grow operations going. It went beyond medical marijuana. So the legislature put some sideboards on it. That same session, it was in the 11th session, I had a bill then to put it back as a referendum to let the people decide whether they wanted to rescind it or not. But if people pass something, legislature needs to work with it until the people rescind it.
1 minute response.
Okay. I agree with Keith on that. I think the public is, what they vote on is very, very important, such as sales tax. They've already made a decision on that statewide. No sales tax, very clear. We need to go with it. So I agree with Keith on that. However, I do agree with him 110% on what he just mentioned about the medical marijuana bill. That needs some careful consideration. It wasn't thought through. I actually voted for it, believe it or not. I did, because I thought it would be a good thing to have people. There are people that need, that medical help. I was wrong. It was got completely out of hand. I'm glad the legislature took care of it.
30-second rebuttal. Okay. All right, moving on to our third question, and this one will be for Don. If Montana were forced to accept refugees, would you support legislation for a refugee registry? And there's a little more to this question. An example cited of South Carolina, where the state Senate recently passed a bill for a refugee registry which would hold organizations and sponsors responsible if a refugee they help commits a crime. It has not passed the state house in South Carolina and not yet signed by the governor, but that's where it stands in South Carolina.
Thank you. I am completely for the vetting of refugees. There is no doubt that we are at war with terrorism, and most of that terrorism, we know where it comes from. We're talking about bringing people into our country, into our county, into our state that have not been vetted, that don't know our culture, don't know what's going on with our thing, and some of them are here to kill us. So those people need to be vetted. I'm not saying they're bad people, because there's good people in there, but by golly, I'm not willing to take the chance to be able to come to my home of Kalispell, Whitefish, Montana, and have people here that I don't know that are safe. So we need to take and vet those people completely before they're allowed in this county. And so the answer is yes.
1 minute response.
Yes, both my grandfathers were immigrants to the U.S., so I'm not opposed to immigration, but the type of immigration we have going on, the Syrian refugees, we see what they're doing in Europe. It's insane. We'd have to vet every one of them. My question is, why aren't the Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and others taking their own? Why are they coming here? So I think it'd be a long shot. I'd say, hey, let's send them, let these other countries step up and take care of them.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to our next question. This will be for Mr. Regier. Would you vote to increase the gasoline tax?
Oh, no.
No worries. I just had a new grandchild the other day.
Can I have the question again? We couldn't hear.
Would you vote to increase the gasoline tax?
I would have to say no. I would have to say no to that myself. I'm not for any new taxes. We need to work within the bounds that we have. We have a surplus in our government right now because we've done a good job stewardship-wise. We don't need any more tax money until we need the tax money. I'm a businessman. I look at it from a business perspective. That's what I think we need in Helena. So my answer, I agree with my opponent.
You like rebuttal time? Okay. All right, our last question. To wrap up, and again, I think Mr. Regier's already touched on this. Don, this will be for you initially. Why are you a Republican?
All right, well, thank you for coming on that, Keith. I'm a Republican because I'm a businessman. I'm a conservative fiscally and socially. I always have been, and I always will. I grew up here in Kalispell, Montana. It's really easy being a Republican in Kalispell, just so you know, because I've been a Republican conservative in Whitefish. Not so easy. Trying to run a business in Whitefish, Montana, being a conservative Republican. That's why you need to elect me to go to this thing. You will not be diminished with my leadership there. We're both going to, whichever one you elect, we're going there with a clean slate. Sure, Keith has been in the House, but he's a first-time senator just like me. So I can tell you right now that you elect me, I will give you the leadership, and we'll make things happen. And because that's what I'm about: getting things done, making it happen, and working together. When I go to Whitefish, if you look at the operation we were able to build up there, it's because I can work with people that don't agree with me. Thank you.
1 minute response.
Could you repeat the question again?
Why are you a Republican?
Okay, thank you. Because I am pro-life, I am pro-Second Amendment, I am conservative, I think fiscal responsibility, I believe in delayed gratification and living within your means, and that's the way I was raised. And I've seen too many examples of liberalism tearing down countries and areas to where it just doesn't work, and then conservatism has to come in and clean up the act. Example, Neville Chamberlain, World War II, liberal. It took a conservative Churchill to clean up the mess. Reagan, it took him to clean up a mess, and we had a lot of things going well. The liberals have been in charge now. It's conservatism that'll bring us out of this mess. Well, I left off with, I think it was my opponent said, he said that he had been going door to door and people were frustrated about some things that got passed, and there's a hidden alluding to leadership failed. I want to point out that the Republicans had the majority in the Senate and the House, but the conservatives were in the minority.
Yep.
We had a handful of liberal Republicans that voted with the Democrats and got some of the stuff through that shouldn't have gotten through. I asked you earlier what it means to be a Republican. There is a website that grades Republican legislators on the votes on whether they vote with the majority of Republican legislators or against them. It's called Legistats. You can do an internet search. Just type out Legistats or get one of my flyers, go to my website. There's a link to Legistats. I received an A grade from Legistats. My record in Helena shows that I am a Republican that Republicans can count on. And we're going to need that in the next session. There's a lot of issues that are going to come up. One, what to do with surplus funds. We've had several $100 million leftover money at the end of each biennium. What to do with it? Last session, the governor messed up a lot on an infrastructure bill that came towards the end of the session, and he wanted to throw a couple $100 million worth of bonding in there. That means that would be debt that you would have to take care of, and he was stubbornly hung on to that, so it got defeated. Tax burdens. Property taxes, too high for a lot of people. Income tax. I had the first bill that was vetoed last session because I tried to lower your personal income tax rates just 0.2%. It would have taken about $40 million out of the fund. Anyhow, vote Regier, Senate District 3.
I'm grateful to be here tonight. I also want to thank the Republican women. I'm grateful for the service of my opponent. However, in capitalism that I have been involved in my entire business career, I have not taken a green paycheck since I left the United States Marine Corps. Zero. I've never got a subsidy. I've never got anything from the government. I'm the one that writes the checks like you do. We're capitalists. In a capitalist society, you are graded on what you get done. Not because you don't have enough conservatives, not because you got moderates, not these things. You're graded on what you do. And by golly, we failed last session. And if you don't want to admit that, you're just flat wrong. And that's just the way it is. We failed last session. You vote for me, June 7th, you'll get a leader in there. Somebody that can work with people that don't agree with him and bring them over and is smart and will come up with a plan to get the jobs done. I'm a persuasive conservative. Everybody in Whitefish calls me that, even my Democrat friends, and I've got a lot of them. We don't agree, but we're friends. Why? Because they respect me and I respect them. We don't agree on a lot of things, but I have been pulling them over to the right my entire career in Whitefish. We get graded on what we do, remember that. Look at my record. I'm conservative, always have been, always will be. Keith and I will vote exactly alike, but with me, you get leadership. Thank you.